Hello, in this video, we're going to talk about multi-step word problems. This is probably the hardest skill in Unit 2 and really across almost every type of problem that people have in math. So I'm going to give you some tips and strategies on how to work through these kind of problems, but ultimately it's going to come down to practice, practice, practice. So here's a first example. Mrs. Jones bought 5 8-packs of red pens and 12 10-packs of blue pens. How many red and blue pens did she buy in all? Now, there's a few steps to follow in order to solve this problem. The very first thing you should always think of when you get a question is there any hidden questions? That means, is there something that you need to solve before you can come up with your ultimate answer? The ultimate answer in this one wants to know how many total red and blue pens she bought. But what I don't know is how many red pens she actually bought or how many blue pens she actually bought. So that is my hidden question. Sometimes there could be more than one, like in this case. I do not know how many red pens or how many blue pens that um, we have in total. So the next step is to write our knowns down. When you write your knowns down, it is important to group together anything that maybe goes together. So in the very first part, it says we have 5 8-packs. So we have 5 8-packs, and that's of red pens. So I'm kind of keeping my information organized together. And we have 12 10-packs. So I have my 12 with the 10-packs of blue pens. And ultimately, we're trying to solve what P is, the amount of pens. So if we go back to very first step 1 here, are there any hidden questions? Well, the first hidden question was, how many red pens do I have? So if I have 5 8-packs, I could do this in 2 ways. I could draw a picture if it helps. I have 5 and I have 8 packs, right? 5 and 8. Well, really, that just comes down to it's a multiplication problem between them because the relationship is for each pack, I have 5. So I can do 5 times 8, and I get 40 red pens. So now we have answered that question. Our second question was how many blue pens? Well, we have 12 10-packs. So again, we could draw 12 with 10 in each of the packs. But really, that's just a multiplication equation. 12 times 10 is 120. Now we're finding some key words. Here's a keyword here. We had red pens and we had blue pens. And then another one is how many did she buy in all? Anytime we're talking about in all, that is a total amount. So we're trying to find our total amount, which meant that all of these other things were parts. So I'm going to do my 40 red pens plus my 120 blue pens to get 160 pens total. Let's take a look at another example that has not been completed for you yet. If you would like, you can pause the video and try to see if you can solve this problem on your own, and then resume the video to see if you are correct. Jonathan wants to buy a bike that costs $165. He has already saved $117. He earns $12 each hour working as a lifeguard. and saves all of it for the bike. How many more hours does Jonathan need to work in order to have enough money to buy the bike? So, the first thing we're going to need to do is find out if we have any hidden questions. Sometimes the order of these two steps can be interchanged. I like writing my information down before I come up with my hidden question because sometimes when I find what goes together in my knowns, I kind of can come up with what is missing of information I need. So he buys a bike that costs, or he wants to buy a bike that costs $165. He has already saved $117. And he works and he earns $12 per hour. The first thing I like to do when I find my knowns is, are any of these my actual total? Because if you can find your total, a lot of times that helps you solve your problem. I hope you said that the 165 was your total, which makes this a part of the total, and this becomes a part of the total. So if we know the total, that's the amount the bike actually costs, do we have any hidden questions we need to solve first in order to answer this question? I hope you answered that you need to find out how much money he has left to until he can buy the bike. So, the first step, if we solve that problem, we can take our total and we can take the part that he has already earned. And because we're dealing with a total and a part, we will subtract them. 5 minus 7 we cannot do, so we need to borrow from next door. 15 minus 7 we now can do. 5 minus 1. And 1 minus 1 is nothing. So we end up with he has 48 more dollars to go in order to buy this bike. So now, if he's making $12 an hour, the question you have to come up with is, how many of those hours is he going to have to work earning 12 at a time to get to 48? Well, there's a couple different ways you could solve this. You can just start repeated addition of 12 to find out how many of these it's going to take in order for you to get to 48. Or because you're a fourth grader, you should know your multiples of 12. That if you did 48 divided by 12, you should know that that is 4. So he needs to work 4 more hours in order to save up and have enough money for this bike. This is, again, one of those hardest things to master because there's so many different parts involved in order to come up with an answer. Extra practice is needed for this skill. You can find more problems in the Math Activity Center. So if you go to Think Central and then you click on Library or Materials, and in there, you'll find Math Activity Center G4. So within your library of Think Central, you'll find Math Activity Center G4. It might even add the word in student. If you click on it, you should be given some of these options that you see right here. The one that's probably going to help you the most is this lesson checks. That's going to look a lot like the different practices that you've been assigned through the year. It gives you some help buttons. It gives you the check button, the retry button, and just definitely gives you more problems. The unit that this comes out of is Unit 2, and it's Lesson 11. So when you click on this button, you'll want to then click on Unit 2, and then after that, you'll want to click on Lesson 11. Another great tool to practice and get more exposure to these kind of problems is IXL F7 in 4th grade. But again, if you want to pass this Unit 2 test, the best thing you can do is give yourself more practice. Good luck and keep working.